able, can you please rise? And I'm going to begin with cutting the Kriya ribbon for David and other members of the family. Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, O God, the judge of truth, who today calls upon us to take on a truth that is terribly difficult to accept. With our ancestor Job, we say, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakah, Yishem Adonai Nevorah. God is given, God is taken. Blessed be God forever and ever. In love, God gave us Harriett Rose. In loving compassion, God has brought an end to her time on earth with us, and she's no longer suffering. And in love and in truth, God has given us the gift of the memory of Harriett forever and ever. For hearts that are torn, we perform this act of Kriya.
Shifti Adonai Nenegik Tamid, Kimi Meni Baal Amot.
I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of your life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Death has taken our beloved Harriett Rose. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Harriett's love that united us in life, in which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. The gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness is now a precious remembrance. For all these things and more, we give thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in dark, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death.
Please remain.
Please remain standing as you are able for the recitation of "The Lord is my shepherd." Feel free to use the English translation that you learned in temple, synagogue, or your own house of worship during your formative years or years of congregational participation. We'll recite this great psalm together. Adonai ro'i lo echzar. Together with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please be seated. Well, somebody was listening during religious school. The words of Ecclesiastes 3. V'chol zman ve'et v'chol chafetz tachat hashamayim, et laledet ve'et lamut, et lata'at ve'et la'akor natua. For everything there is a season, the time for every experience under heaven. The time to be born and the time to die. The time to plant and the time to uproot what is planted. The time to tear down and a time to build up. The time to weep and a time to laugh. The time to grieve and a time to dance. The time to throw stones and the time to gather stones. The time to embrace. And as our painful time and duration of pandemic reminds us, the time to refrain from embracing. Time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. My friends, the time to speak has arrived, and as I alluded to earlier, we'd like to begin by calling friend, family member, and caretaker extraordinaire Jennifer Smith.
A tribute to Harriett A. Rose. Mrs. Rose was a spark in my life, even though she would disagree. We all know she has something going on to have lived such a ripe age of 100. We had long talks about everything and everybody. Some people she liked and some she didn't. But that was Harriett Rose. I remember when the telephone would ring and I would answer and tell her who it was on the other end. Sometimes she would give this look. And other times she would smile. But that was Harriett Rose. There would never be another one like her. She was my friend. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be a friend? A helping hand to the journey's end. A loyal heart and a loving one too. There is no task great for a friend to do. What does it mean to be a friend? A burden carried around the bend. A hill to climb for another's sake. There's nothing a friend won't understand. What does it mean to be a friend? A tongue that is quickest to defend. A friend comes through when a test demands. A friend is a person who understands. What does it mean to be a friend? A life to help and a purse to lend. This sort of help, I want to be that kind of friend. Harriett A. Rose, you were to me.
Jennifer, thank you for that powerful tribute word. You were indeed a true friend through thick and thin. Next, we want to call on another longtime friend and colleague in the world of Lexington mental and emotional health, and a member of the Jewish community leadership and of Temple Edith Israel leadership, Dr. David Trader.
Good afternoon. I've known Harriett all of my 74 years on this earth, and it's both an honor and a surprise to deliver her eulogy today. It's an honor in that it is Harriett I have been asked to eulogize, and a surprise because I'm sure she's smiling from somewhere, as she often recited to me, being my childhood religious school principal at Temple Edith Israel, that, quote, she was always shocked when she learned I became a physician, believing I'd end up in jail. Actually, she was very proud of me, and that was Harriett's style. She could be kind with praise, but also never suffered fools. But we've gathered here today not only to greet Harriett, but to celebrate a century of life filled with great achievements. But like all long-lived lives, filled also with vicissitudes, including grievous losses and physical setbacks she had to overcome. What's really amazing is that she candidly shared her trips at the top of the mountains and the depths of the valleys in her 18 years running column in the Chevy Chaser magazine, a momentous achievement, and that from around 1999 until 2017, folks. And that's from the ages of 78 to 97. She wrote her column in an extremely popular magazine for 18 years, only missing 3 issues. You can still incidentally Google them, and they remain witty, incisive, and contemporary. And then after retiring from her clinical practice as a psychologist and counselor, she actually, and that was almost 35 years, around the age of 78, she went to the Carnegie Center, mastered creative writing, and not only wrote for those 18 years, but also wrote her autobiography. Some of you probably already have, Not Necessarily Kosher. And that was written at the age of 95. Her persona or essence of greatness as a human being, in my opinion, was that she simplified was the best in the term modern. She was always current, always part of the age of time, never dated. She prided herself as having opinions and beliefs that would, with one foot in the best of the past, but the other in the current and even avant-garde thinking. She could be both opinionated based on the virtues and vices of the past, but very contemporary and advancing her views. And very young, she was never old and was looked up as she aged for uncanny ways of sharing her view of the past with her opinions, acceptance, and views of the here and now. Nothing shocked her, and her mind was always open and eager to imbibe new trends and ideas. She never forgot her history, which became more cherished by all of us as she aged. So what made Harriett Abraham Rose so special? Well, if you read some of her articles in the Chevy Chaser, she attributes it to being the first grandchild in her generation and being doted on by aunts and uncles. She was born at home on September 13th, 1929 in Shelbyville, Kentucky, which remarkably was just a month after women were given the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. She had 2 younger siblings, Jay and my dear departed stepmother, Vivian. The Abrahams had a butcher shop in Shelbyville, or meat store, and according to a source, they had the first meat locker, frozen meat locker in Kentucky. At an early age, the family moved to Lexington, and Harriett graduated from the old Henry Clay High School in 1937, which was 8 years after my father graduated there. She then graduated the University of Kentucky with a BS in music. And while teaching music in Dayton, Ohio, met Stanley Rose, who during World War II was working in the Air Force Command there, procuring plane engines. They married, moved initially to Cleveland, and then ultimately to Lexington in 1938. They had 2 sons, Ricky and David. David reports to me that they moved to Lexington in 1948 because at the age of 1 year old, he complained it was too cold in Cleveland. I began to know Harriett when the Roses lived on in Old Chevy Chase on 367 Colony Avenue, the next street over from Cassidy Avenue, where I live. I've known Harriett in many phases of life as a mother, an active member of Temple, Harriett Israel, where I sat with her a number of times in her office in the library when she was a principal on timeout. After Harriett raised her children, she went on to obtain advanced degrees at UK, a master's degree in counseling and guidance, and a PhD in psychology in 1964. She was then 44 years of age and went on to a brilliant career both as counseling and testing center at UK and private practice in offices on Versailles Road. For 35 years, Dr. Harriett Rose gave hope, insight, and guidance to many. And I know this from other patients that I've seen as well as her. She was always looked up to and respected. She worked with Lanny Lipton, a PhD and former member of our Temple, and Charles Chuck Elton, also a PhD psychologist. And they both mentored her and encouraged her respectively. After Stanley's passing, she married Chuck, and they were happily married until his death. Together, Chuck and Harriett published over 37 articles in peer-reviewed journals, and that's extraordinary. And she was part of it, and she, of course, worked or was stood by Stanley's side while he built up factory services and ultimately became BFI, a very successful company in waste management. Indeed, in typical Harriett manner, after she obtained her doctorate, and I've heard her say this, in her inimitable manner, she stated, "I'm probably the only PhD psychologist married to a garbage man." She also had time to raise 2 wonderful sons, Ricky, who became an attorney, and David, a Transylvania graduate, realtor, and is a dear friend of mine. She lost both her younger siblings, including my second mother, Vivian, and her younger sister and her brother. So Harriett's actually been many things to me, but through marrying Vivian, as we say in Yiddish, she was misspoken, or family, an aunt. Harriett dealt with tragedy nobly and through constant engagement in life, including the early death of Ricky, loss of her grandchild Alicia, loss of Stanley and Chuck, and experienced her own major physical illnesses, which would have sidelined a lesser soul. She never stopped learning and reinventing herself, improving herself through reading, education, bridge, Scrabble, Kollel studies, and never lacked an opinion or courage to speak it up. She embraced life and aspired to a long one, which she achieved. But it's not the years she aspired to, but to achieve and to be heard. On one of her articles in the Chevy Chaser in the May 2012 issue, and she was 92 at the time, she stated, quote, "If I go before my 100th birthday, I'm going to be so irritated about the exercise I did when I hated it, about the sensible diet and the intelligent books. I struggled through. Who needed it?" Her mother lived into her 90s, as did several of her aunts, and she was conflicted about it, observing another one of her columns, "Tell me why I'm taking exercises that make my back hurt when my heredity suggests that I'll be okay if I live just as I lived." So that's what's there. Her life spanned a century, and she changed with it. That was her essence and strength. The modern philosopher, 20th century philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre famously claimed, "Existence precedes essence." This merely means that we're born. It means nothing. It's what we become by choice and actions that truly defines us. And for Harriett, that included being included in Who's Who in American Women, the Henry Clay Hall of Fame, Associate Professor of Psychology at the University of Kentucky for many years, licensed as a PhD in 1965, and membership in a myriad of professional organizations, too numerous to name here, including the American Psychological Association. She was devoted to her faith and Temple Harriett Israel, being a lifelong member and donor over 100 years of the 100+ years of the Temple's existence. Don't worry, folks, I'm almost finished. The The Rose and Abraham endowment funds at our temple stand testament to Harriett and her family's dedication to Jewish life in Lexington. Finally, my condolences and congratulations to David and Marcia, as well as the extended family of her grandchildren, Jessica, Nicole, Stephen, and great-grandchildren, extended family. I congratulate you, as well as my condolences, because you are proud inheritors of a grand life to be celebrated. And thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful words, David. Quite a tribute.
This week's Torah portion is
entitled Tazria Mitzor, and quite appropriate for our pandemic age, our second go round of springtime while coping with this epidemic. It's the job of the priests to check in on those who are suffering with a condition called sara'at. It might be leprosy, it might be some sort of plague, it's some white scaly thing that you just don't want to have. And we've already heard today from Jennifer and David that one of Harriett's greatest virtues was telling it like it is. And like a mental health care professional, and like a physician, and like the high priest, it is sometimes our unwelcome duty in life to tell it like it is. It is one that Harriett Rose did not shy away from. Like the strong Southern Jewish matriarchs in Driving Miss Daisy, you could count on Harriett to give it to you straight, no chaser. She frequently attended Torah study and kollel and was fond of saying, getting old isn't for wimps. She would comment frankly and bluntly if she found a passage to be harsh or unjust. And it's entirely fitting and proper that on the reverse side of this Rose family marker that she shares with her beloved Stanley, you have in English the translation of the words from Deuteronomy, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. She had a great heart and a great passion for justice. Like the priest, Harriett assessed the situation before her, whether it was a person or a problem, based on the situation and the information around. And she would offer an assessment based on what she saw, even if it might not be what people wanted to hear. For the person awaiting the high priest's diagnosis of tameh or tahor, of impure, impure, you have both a human connection a pastoral or a human desire to be empathic, to be gentle, and yet you have a professional and an ethical responsibility to be accurate, to be precise, and to sometimes bring very painful and inconvenient truth. And again, she shouldered the burden with wit and wisdom and did not shirk from responsibility of telling people what they needed to know, which is markedly different from what they might have wanted to hear. As a student of the human heart and as a disciplined practitioner of mental and emotional health, Harriett knew that clients at the end of the day need honest advice and deep compassion in equal measure. She was both an exacting critic and a loyal and devoted fan. She was ready, willing, and able to do both. May we honor Harriett's legacy by telling it like it is, distinguishing between tameh and tahor, pure and impure, between true and false, between fact and fiction, between wise and foolish, between constructive and cruel. By offering wit and wisdom, by offering critique and compassion, v'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might. May this be our blessing and our legacy, our debt to our friend and family member and colleague, Harriett Rose. May it be our blessing. And let us say together as one, Amen. I ask our friends from Neil Words or Lex Cemetery to start circulating the gloves now, please, so people can participate in the ritual of shoveling of the dirt. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, we haven't been able to do a whole lot of responsive readings in the COVID age, but as we are outdoors and as many of you are vaccinated at this point, and as you are masked, we're going to do just a little bit of that. This is a beautiful poem that I love to do at a funeral for a beautiful person. And I'm going to ask you to simply respond each time I come to a pause with the words, "We will remember her." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of our beautiful bluegrass spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joys we yearn to share, so long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember. I ask all who are able to please rise for the recitation of the El Male Rachamim, the prayer for God's compassion, and we'll call on my friend and colleague, Dr. Lauren Deckenberg, to recite the prayer. Go ahead.
El Male Rachamim, Shofet ein Bamromi. Amet Uchanechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashechina, Im Kedoshim Moteharim, Kezohar Harakia, Masiri. Et nishmat Harriett Rose shehalcha leolama. Va'al harachamim yastireha beseter knafav leolamim. V'yitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata. V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava. V'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Harriett Rose, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say together, Amen. Please be seated. A couple of brief pieces of housekeeping as we continue to circulate the gloves. The family has asked me to share with you that you can honor Harriett's memory by contributing either to the Rose Family Fund at Temple Added Israel or at the Carnegie Center, where she studied writing and made such a great contribution to the Chevy Chase. So I have to throw in one additional story. It was at one of our Jewish food festivals that a young mom with a stroller and another child in tow sees Harriett Rose in the foyer of Temple. And there were hundreds of people coming in and out that day, but she recognized Harriett from her column in the paper and the little picture that stood next to it. And she was fawning over Harriett Rose like a Hollywood celebrity. And, are you Harriett Rose? And she said, why, yes, I am. I love your articles. They mean so much to me. I read them every time they come out. Thank you so much. And you could just see Harriett light up with the positive attention and the recognition. It was so sweet. It happened a lot, Davis. Well, it happened that day at Temple. I got to see it. It was truly. I'm glad it wasn't just Temple, but we were fortunate to see it at Temple. Shiva, a prayer gathering, will be tonight at 7 o'clock. Also available via Zoom. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave. It is only the house of the spirit which we are about to lay within the earth. The spirit itself can never die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed Harriett. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it. Still, it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. Oh God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand. That the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near, who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping, as we repeat words hallowed by the generations. I ask you all to please rise for the recitation of Mortar's Kaddish. Yikadam v'yikadash shemirah.
Amen.
Yoma yivrak yurte v'yamlichma v'te. V'chayachon v'yomechon. V'chayidachol beit Yisrael. Agala v'zman karid v'ru.
Amen.
Yehi shmei v'ra mevorach me'olam v'lamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yifahar v'yifamam v'yinaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shnei v'yishah.
Rihu.
Le'ela minko v'yifata v'shirata v'yushbechata v'nechemata. Namivan v'yalma v'ru.
Amen.
Yehi shmama rava min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'ru.
Amen.
V'oseh shalom v'yalma. V'yaseh shalom aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'ru.
Amen.
May God grant peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us. And let's stay together. The final ritual of our funeral is the shoveling of earth onto the grave. This has been likened to tucking in a little baby, a little child, at the end of the day, blanketing the coffin with love and kindness. There are a couple of customs. Again, they're customs. They need not be strictly practiced, but if you would like to observe them, you're encouraged to do so. So one of these customs is that we do not hand the shovel to the next person, but rather you take the shovel and return it to the pile of earth, or you can lean it against either stone. And we do this, I like to believe, my favorite interpretation of it is that while each of us has lost the same person, each of us has lost Harriett unique. We all mourn her loss in our individual way. And each of us has to perform this mitzvah, this commandment for ourselves. So too, it is customary to put in at least the first shovelful upside down. And this, in the great Jewish tradition of argument and protest, shows to the heavens and to one another that while this is something we must do, like declaring Tameh and Tahor, pure and impure, it is something we do by necessity. It's something that we do under protest, because we don't want to let go of our beloved Harriett. And so we put in the first shovelful deliberately upside down in a manner to purposefully proceed in an inefficient way, rather than an emphasis on efficiency and streamlining that we make perhaps too much a point of emphasis in our digital age. With that, I'd like to call David and the family forward first to carefully place some earth on the grave for our beloved Harriett. David, before the first shovelful, put in some dirt from the Mount of Olives, and in this way, all of us are symbolically buried in the promised land. You can do the next one. To all of you who have been watching this service via Zoom, all of us here want to extend our deepest thanks and appreciation upon behalf of the family and mourners. The Shiva Minyan will be tonight at 7:00 p.m. You should have received the link. We're going to conclude our Zoom broadcast at this point as we continue with the shoveling. And to all of you who are watching on Zoom, we charge you to love and remember and keep Harriett's legacy by committing acts of loving kindness for a world that needs our help. Next time on a happier occasion.